Good evening at 6 o'clock in the Common Council Chambers, Tuesday, January 28th. Call to order, roll call. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C, identify possible conflicts of interest. Seeing none, moving on to item D, public comment period correspondence. At this time, I will recognize members in attendance wishing to address the council. Upon recognition by me, persons may address the council first stating their name and address. Comments will be limited to no more than 5 minutes, and persons are asked to be respectful when addressing the council. No action will be taken regarding items not on the agenda. However, the council will take comments from the public under advisement. Please note that council members will not respond to your comments or questions. Are there any citizen comments? Are there any citizen comments? See no citizen comments, move on to item E, approval of minutes for the January 14th, 2025 regular meeting. We have a motion by Alderman Giles, second by Alderman Fire. Any questions, comments? Alderman Tompkins?
I just wanted to clarify one thing that's in the Marshfield utility meeting minutes.
This is the council minutes, not the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Seeing no other, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Staff updates.
I'm not aware of any this evening.
Mayor's comments. This evening, I'm going to give you a little exciting news about the Central Wisconsin State Fair Board and staff who attended the Wisconsin Association of Fair Convention. First place was awarded to them in the media entry category for fair brochure. First place in the media entry category for the fair newspaper ad. Dale Christensen, executive director, won the Friend of the Fair Award. Sandy Leonard, the board president, won the Outstanding Fair Person Award. And the final, not to say last award, but the Cornerstone Church won the Volunteer Group Appreciation Award. Only one of these awards is selected each year from all of the different fair people that come to these meetings and the conventions. They worked 2 of the admission gates all day and every day during the fair. Congratulations to all the winners. And they had a very successful fair in 2024. I keep asking Dale to come and give us the numbers, so hopefully by the next meeting or so, he'll be able to do that for all of us. Again, how exciting to see these folks go to this event, and they had no idea they were going to win. This is all done during the, yep, so that was a very exciting thing. And each one of you council members have the packet in your, help me. Thank you, in your mailbox, so you can see everything that happened, which is very exciting. And please share with everyone you know, because we want to make sure everybody knows that the fair is really doing well. And obviously with what they've won, things are working better. So this is great. And that is all I have for this evening. We have now council comments and Alderman Tompkins. You want to wait, correct? Yes. Anybody else have any council comments? Seeing none. City Administrator's update.
Just a couple of things, Mayor. I want to commend Mackie and our City Clerk, Jessica, for the great leadership Marshfield we had this last time around. Those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a great program, and a lot of leaders have been raised over the years by going through the program of learning more about the medical complex, the city, so many other parts of our local business community and economy. So thank you for that. And then I also want to note that we'll be putting out some information soon about the upcoming appointments to the various committees, boards, and commissions. I know that the mayor is always looking for people. And as we get closer toward April, we want people to be able to send a letter or email if they're interested in being appointed to one of the various advisory boards and committees that we have. So people can jump in. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for that great reminder. Item J, reports from commissions, boards, and committees. Seeing none, consent agenda, meeting minutes, reports. Now, Alderman Tompkins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to bring attention to an item in the Marshfield Utilities minutes. Item number 2, it talks about general obligation bonds. And as a commission, we were very pleased that the water utility has been applying for grants to continue with replacing all of the lead service pipes. And at the moment, there's still 92 private lead service pipes that need to be replaced. And for the grant, 2 out of the 5 census tracts were able to get 100% funding to get this done. But 3 out of the 5 only got 75% funding. So the commission is using their funds, $32,000, to help fill that gap so that people can still get this done for free. So I would just really stress to the public that if you've been notified by Marshfield Utilities that you still have lead pipes, please take advantage of this. As you can see, the grant's already starting to not be 100% from the state. So please take advantage of it. Get those lead pipes changed out. You don't need to be drinking water with lead in it. Thank you so much.
Any other comments from anybody else? Seeing none, please vote to accept the minutes for the consent agenda.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye. Those consent agenda passes. So we can move on to item M. As L, we have nothing to take out of consent agenda. Item M, second reading of ordinance number 1525, amending chapter 15 to 18 of Marshfield Municipal Code, property maintenance, presented by Harold Wolfgram, City Attorney.
Last meeting I referenced that as a second reading. This is the second reading for this. And what we really are amending here is just one provision in the code to bring it current with the Uniform Property Maintenance Code, which was adopted previously, and we had exempted out specifically the references to junk and junk cars. And now this is actually bringing into our code the same provisions that exist in the Uniform Property Maintenance Code addressing junk and junk cars. So this was requested by the building services as well as our ordinance enforcement folks to just bring that up. And it helps the enforcement. It makes it a little bit easier in terms of proof should we have to go to court on it.
We have a motion on the floor by Alderman Varsho, second by Alderman Fire. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you. Item N, first reading of ordinance number 1526, amending chapter 25 of Marshfield Municipal Code, construction site erosion control, presented by Harold Wolfgram, City Attorney.
This amendment is to the chapter 25 and it's fairly comprehensive. So if you look in your packet, you really got almost the whole entire chapter 25 there. And we reference back the specific provisions that were being amended by the minutes in the Board of Public Works at a prior meeting, and they were recommended by the Board of Public Works with a couple of tweaks that occurred after that. This is really just updating that chapter 25, which did require some modifications and some considerations in terms of definitions. But again, this is pretty comprehensive in terms of what has been amended, and you'd have to look through all of that to kind of match up what's going on. I couldn't begin to reference each of those individual parts that were amended.
No action this evening. We'll see you back in 2 weeks. Thank you, Hap. Item O, approved budget resolution number 02-2025, Brain Park Wet Detention Basin Project, presented by Jennifer Solinsky, Finance Director.
Good evening. The city's stormwater management plan was completed in 2023 and provides recommendations for us to meet the upcoming phosphorus reduction requirements, including the construction of wet detention ponds. The preliminary design for the Brain Park Wet Detention Pond has been completed, and we now need to complete a final design and construct the pond. Design is expected to be completed in 2025, and construction is expected to be completed in 2026. In 2025, the city budgeted $50,000 towards expenditures for this project. The funding sources for this project include $150,000 grant from the DNR. And there is also potential for a Clean Water Fund loan, which would include a 25% principal forgiveness portion. However, those things don't take effect until either the project is in progress or complete. And this design needs to happen now. So we are under budget for this project for 2025, and the recommendation is that we increase the budget $58,300, and we borrow those funds. I'm also recommending that we reduce the amount borrowed for the street seal coat and crack filling program by that same amount. And that program should not be adversely affected because they do have unspent funds from prior years that they can utilize in 2025. So with that, staff recommends approval of Budget Resolution 02-2025 to increase the Brame Park Wet Detention Pond project by $58,300.
We have a motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Giles. Alderman Tompkins?
Thank you, Jennifer. I asked some of these questions at the Finance, Budget and Personnel, and I just want to ask them just for other people who might be watching this meeting. When we did this stormwater, when we did this plan, it's so that we can comply with how much phosphate goes into Wisconsin's rivers and streams. And at that time, they said it would take us $17 million to comply. Do you feel like that's still something that's reasonable, or do you think that cost is actually going to go up over the next 10 years as we comply?
It will most certainly go up. Even this project itself, I think initially we were probably within a few $100,000 to budget it. The actual total cost is going to be roughly $940,000 total before we start applying grants and funding from borrowing or through that Clean Water Fund loan. So undoubtedly that will go up over time.
And so one of the things I had asked you and you had said, I'll just ask you again and then you can just explain it, that if we had a stormwater utility, all of these costs would come from that utility, those fees, is that right?
Correct. The point of a stormwater utility is to assess a fee based on the amount of area you have that is contributing to runoff. So the choices that we have to pay for this whole remediation effort that we will be undertaking for a number of years would be through opportunities from DNR grants, Clean Water Fund loans, which the loan translates into a property tax assessment. So you have a stormwater utility, you assess a fee, and that would free up capacity under your general obligation debt borrowing for these projects as we go forward.
And if we had a stormwater utility, because it's based on runoff, so it's based on parking lots, and if we think through our city, we have a lot of nonprofits that have large parking lots, whether it's clinics, schools, churches, all kinds that aren't contributing to this huge project that we have to do and comply with. And instead, all of this is going to go on the backs of property owners like that own a single home or own a little business. So that's just something that I feel like we need to really take seriously to help share the costs of this project.
Alderman Weigel?
There we go. Thank you. Just very, very briefly. And you can probably answer this without being your department, Ms. Alinsky, but these are functional like stormwater ponds, not for like recreation or to like amplify the park, but rather for handling runoff and stormwater. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you much.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approved budget resolution number 03-2025, renovation of Stroman Park, presented by Jennifer Solinsky, Finance Director.
Stroman Park was dedicated in 1992 in the memory of Lieutenant Marvin Stroman, who died in the line of duty with the Marshfield Fire and Rescue Department in 1981. This park serves as a reminder of Marvin's legacy, as well as honoring other local firefighters who served in the department. The Stronum family and the local firefighters union approached the department about making improvements. Now, this was a part of our 2024 CIP plan, and at that time we had anticipated a budget of $100,000 for renovation of that park, where $65,000 would be coming from donations and grants, and $35,000 would be coming from room tax. However, since then, grant applications weren't successful, and the private fundraising has not materialized. The funding source of the $35,000 of room tax has been collected and transferred to the capital improvement fund for Parks and Recreation. However, we did not include that in the budget for 2025. So with that, this budget resolution would authorize the spending of that room tax dollars for the purpose of refurbishing the park, and I would ask for your approval.
We have a motion by Alderman Giles, second by Alderman Tompkins. Are there any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item Q, request to approve resolution number 2025-08, changing calculation method for public fire protection charge. Note, this is a revised version of resolution number 2024-49, which was approved by council on December 17th, 2024, presented by Nicholas Cum, General Manager, Marshfield Utilities.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight I'm here to recommend approval of resolution 2025-08, which addresses public fire protection. As a brief reminder, public fire protection relates to the infrastructure and maintenance costs of the water utility that enables the system to supply large amounts of volumes of water during a fire. This includes larger water main, wells, treatment facilities, storage facilities, and obviously the hydrants. Importantly, to note is that these costs are not connected or do not support any of the operations of the fire department. In December, the Common Council approved a resolution to change the method of charging public fire protection from a property assessed value to a system based on the water meter size. However, we've since learned from the Public Service Commission that an additional resolution is required to specify how non-general service customers, those without water meters, are charged. Non-general service customers include like vacant properties, also include properties that have structures but do not have a water service, such as maybe a garage or a storage facility or storage unit. There are three options for addressing these charges, which I'll outline below, or I'll outline here in a second. And I'll use two examples as we go through each one just to provide you some clarity. And the two examples are going to relate to the Daniel subdivision, which currently has, based on my count, 11 parcels that are still owned by the city. And then the other property will be the Marshfield Airport, which actually is comprised of 25 parcels. First, we could bill only customers that have water meters. This option is the simplest to implement, administer, and explain. Customers will understand that if they have a water meter, they will then receive a charge. The charge remains consistent from month to month. This approach is what was recommended by our customer service manager, the financial manager, myself, to the Utility Commission, and ultimately the Utility Commission endorsed this method. Importantly, the monthly rates with this option remain unchanged from those presented in December. The PSC had already accounted this method in the calculations that we presented back in that time. So how this method would impact those two examples, for instance, the Daniel subdivision is vacant parcels, and therefore there would be no new charge. The airport would continue to be charged based on their water meter sizes that are consistently serving the site. Option 2 is to bill all parcels with access to water system. This option includes all vacant properties and properties with structures but no water meters. Implementing and maintaining this approach would require significant administrative burden and effort, especially as properties are bought and sold. Most of the parcels are not currently receiving any PFP charge. So back to those examples, with Daniels with 11 parcels, there would be 11 charges per month, each at $7, so $77 per month. Looking at the airport would add 23 charges at $7 a month. And in addition to the charges for the two parcels that have the water meters. In general, the estimated overall impact to the city, when we look at all the parcels that are just city-owned, is about $17,000 annually in new cost. Due to the overall complexity and administrating, and obviously this financial impact, this is an option that we are not recommending. Option 3 is where we again bill all the parcels with access to the water system, however we consolidate adjacent parcels. So this option consolidates charges for parcels owned by the same person that are divided only by a road, a brook, a creek, or some similar boundary, treating them as a single parcel. Like option 2, this approach includes all vacant properties and structures without water meters. However, again, determining whether parcels meet the adjacent meet the adjacent parcel definition would be difficult and challenging to administer, and ultimately be quite a bit of administrative effort just to overall maintain or manage this. So again, back on the examples with Daniel's subdivision, those parcels would all be considered adjacent, so there would be one charge of $7 for those parcels. And the Marshfield Airport would continue to be charged based on the water meter sizes, similar to the first example, because again, all of those parcels would be considered adjacent, and the hangars and the main terminal have water meters. So the PSC has indicated at the state level that these are the only 3 options currently available. If we wanted to charge only parcels with structures versus those with vacant lots, they've indicated that that could be considered discriminatory or providing preferential charges, which is not permissible at this time. Additionally, in the packet I provided, there's some information on how other larger communities handle this, non-general service customers, and as noted, the majority used option 1, where basically they're billing customers that only have a water meter. So Resolution 2025-08 reaffirms the change from assessed value to the equivalent meter method, and then sets a direct charge for general service customers, i.e. those customers with water meters. Based on the recommendations from the Utility Commission from their January 20th meeting, and I, the General Manager of the Utilities, I recommend approval of Resolution 2025-08.
We have a motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman Giles. Alderman Werman.
Thank you. So Nick, I just want to make sure that I understand this. So this is something that's incorporated in the bill currently. Are we taking it out as a separate charge?
No, your water bill has a public fire protection charge on it now.
Right, it's already listed separate.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so is it the values themselves that are changing based on the size?
Yes, back in December when we presented it and what was approved by the Common Council and recommended by the Commission was to go from what we do originally was that we get the assessed value. It was quite a complicated process, and I won't get into all those details, but we were using that times some factor to come up with what billed on a monthly basis. What was approved and what's being presented tonight is to move to a water meter size. So whatever your size of meter is that's serving your property sets a fixed value, and that value would stay the same from month to month. And then when the assessments happen, reassessments happen, things of that sort, there's no impact on how this charge then flows to the end customer.
Okay. And then could you just clarify your recommended motion? Because I do see here, it looks like the recommended motion is to recommend approval of the resolution, but I know that you gave us the 3 different options up top. But just for clarity in the recommended motion for the council, can you just clarify what that actually would be? You're recommending moving forward with option 1?
Correct, yes. Option 1 is what's spelled out in the resolution 2025-08.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros?
Yes.
Mr. Rigel?
All right.
That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number R, address any council questions on the financial management plan presented on January 14th, except place on file, presented by Jennifer Solinsky, Finance Director.
On January 14th, Kayla Thorpe of Ellers was here to presented via Zoom our 5-year financial plan, which encompassed the general fund's operating projections as well as the 5-year long-term capital improvement planning. At this time, I can answer any questions that may have come up in the last couple of weeks, and if there aren't any, I would recommend Common Council acceptance of the plan and to place it on file.
So we need a motion and a second. Is that correct? Okay.
Yep.
We have a motion by Alderman Tompkins. Just want to make sure because it doesn't say it here. Anyway, second by Alderman Varsho. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote to accept and place on file.
Mrs. Spiros,
Yes.
Mr. Rigel,
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item S, appointment of Sierra Starner Hefner, 917 West Adler Road to the Park, Rec and Forestry Committee to complete an unexpired term ending in April of 2026, presented by me. And we have a motion by Alderman Giles, second by Alderman Tompkins. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros, Mrs. Spiros,
Yes.
Mr. Rigel,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item T, appointment of Zin Rupel, 509 West 11th Street to the Library Board to complete an unexpired term ending in April of 2027. We have a motion by Alderman Werman, second by Alderman Varsho. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mrs. Spiros,
Yes.
Mr. Rigel,
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Item U, suggested items for future agendas. Seeing none, item V, adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute, chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Proposed purchase/development of property located in Daniels Addition. We have a motion by Alderman Tompkins, second by Alderman O'Reilly. Please all vote to go into closed session.
Mrs. Spiros,
Yes.
Mr. Rigel.
Aye.
We are in closed session. We will not take a break.